Okay, the man accused of trying to assassinate former President Donald Trump will be arraigned in a Florida courtroom in just about an hour. Ryan Ruth.
Trump is about to change America forever. We're not merely talking about tweaking some policies or adjusting economic game plans. This is about navigating a political minefield brimming with threats and adversaries left, right, and center. Trump's bold declarations about tearing down established agreements and shaking up global systems have upset powerful groups benefiting from current conditions. These assassination plots against him show their desperation, as they see his plans as a threat to their interests. But which of his bold moves are turning him into a target? The rising threats against Trump. From the moment Donald Trump burst onto the political stage, threats to his life have been a persistent undertone, a bitter melody playing in the background of his career. These threats have only amplified during his roller coaster campaigns and post-presidency, laying bare the sharp divisions that cleave through American politics. Extremist groups and single-minded individuals have grabbed onto political beliefs as a reason for violence, creating a harmful environment where the most extreme actions, the kind you read about in thriller novels, are considered with deadly seriousness. These high-profile incidents don't just make headlines, they throw a blazing spotlight on the urgent and serious threats that loom over his political path. So let's talk about the alarming allegations of assassination attempts that have cast a shadow over Donald Trump's political journey, shall we? Shooting at a rally. Remember the first incident, July 13, 2024? Just minutes into Trump's speech, an assassination attempt unfolds. Targeting him was a 20-year-old named Thomas Matthew Crooks from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. From a nearby rooftop, Crooks unleashed a hailstorm of 8 bullets from an AR-15 style rifle. The aftermath was appalling. Trump suffered a gunshot wound to his upper right ear, an injury demanding urgent medical intervention. The grim toll included the lives of the assailant, Crooks, and an unlucky audience member alongside several others who bore injuries in the chaotic aftermath. The Secret Service's counter-sniper team demonstrated lightning-fast reflexes, neutralizing Crooks within mere seconds, a testament to their training under the severest pressure. Eyewitnesses recount how chaos unfurled in waves as the crowd registered the shocking gunfire. There was a stampede for cover, confusion hanging in the air like a dense fog. Yet through it all, an indomitable Trump, though visibly rattled, regained his footing. He thrust his fist high, echoing a battle cry to the crowd. "Fight, fight, fight!" This incident did more than leave physical wounds. It severed confidence in existing security protocols, spotlighting the chilling vulnerabilities faced during public engagements with such high-stakes figures. Both these incidents in 2024 illuminate the treacherous crossroads where political ambition and extremist threat collide. They reveal the fissures in security and underscore the perilous landscape navigated by public figures today. Each event casts a long shadow, provoking hard questions and demanding even harder answers in a world where public discourse sometimes teeters on the edge of peril. Golf Club. The drama kicked off when Ryan Wesley Routh was apprehended at this exclusive location. The narrative grows more intense as we delve deeper into the details, painting a vivid picture that could easily belong in a thriller novel. Let's zoom in. Witnesses on site that day reported with bated breath that Routh was lurking among the shadows in the trees, armed with a rifle. Believe it or not, this was happening while this wasn't just any correspondence. It explicitly laid out his intention to carry out an assassination attempt on Trump. The gravity and intent were crystal clear. Now for the evidence that casts a forbidding shadow over this tale. When authorities combed through Ruth's residence, what they found was nothing short of alarming. There was a box brimming with ammunition, accompanied by an assortment of materials, a veritable arsenal that told the chilling story of premeditation. One letter, addressed ominously to the world, came to light. In it, Ruth unleashed his frustrations over Trump's political maneuvers concerning Iran, revealing his sheer determination to follow through on his deadly plan. As the tension mounted, law enforcement moved into high gear. Secret Service agents on the scene reacted with swift precision upon spotting Routh. A cat-and-mouse chase ensued as he attempted to slip away unnoticed in a vehicle, a flight that was destined to fail. Shortly after he made his move, Routh was brought to a halt and taken into custody, unraveling any chance of his ominous intentions reaching fruition. The FBI wasted no time initiating a full-fledged investigation into this harrowing episode, keen to unravel the larger implications and plug any security holes that might expose public figures to such targeted threats. This incident at a secluded golf club reveals not only the audacity of threats faced by public figures, but also underscores the constant vigilance required to thwart them. It's a reminder that even the most secure environments can harbor hidden perils, and that the battle against such dangers is as relentless as it is necessary. But why would they really want him dead? There are actually a few key reasons behind it. Let me break it down. The rise of populism and nationalism. Let's talk about the political change that's been shaking up the United States. It's like a storm brewing on the horizon, intensifying with each passing day. Imagine waves crashing against the shore, each one stronger than the last. This is the rise of populism and nationalism, particularly during the whirlwind era of Trump's presidency. Now picture Trump's populist rhetoric as a rallying cry echoing across the nation. His message was crafted around the concept of the forgotten man, striking a chord with working-class voters who felt sidelined by the elite circles in power. It was like giving a voice to the silent majority, a group disillusioned by the unchanged status quo. This storytelling connected deeply with many Americans who had been searching for someone to represent their frustrations, leading to a revival of populist energy sweeping the country. On the other side of this wave, we see nationalism rearing its head like a titan awakening. Trump's America First was not just a catchy phrase, it was a manifesto. This idea of prioritizing national sovereignty over global ties became a guiding star. Visualize Trump's administration stepping back from international commitments like the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal. Each move echoed a broader skepticism towards working collaboratively on a global scale. The push for policies limiting immigration and boosting domestic industries marked an evident split from the pathways of previous administrations, dramatically altering the U.S. approach to globalization. But wait, there's more. Alongside this populist swell, cultural conflict stirred like a bubbling cauldron within American society. Think of key issues related to race, gender, and immigration becoming the battleground for ideological division. The lines were drawn deep and sharp, often splitting along partisan sides. Movements such as Black Lives Matter surged forth like powerful tides, challenging systemic imbalances and sparking intense discussions. These cries for justice prompted reactive stances from nationalist factions who viewed them through a completely different lens. It was a time of confrontation, each side adamant, each word charged with the electricity of clashing beliefs. This brings us to a titanic clash between nationalism and the concept of a deep state, two forces vying for control over America's future. Clash of ideology. It's a titanic clash between the idea of a deep state and the fiery flames of nationalism. Two forces that seem to be tearing at the very fabric of what makes America tick. Imagine two mighty titans locked in a never-ending struggle, each pulling in opposite directions. Let's unravel the first strand, the concept of the deep state. Picture this as an underground network of shadowy figures, entrenched government officials and bureaucrats who, according to some, operate behind the scenes with a mind of their own, steering the ship of state away from its elected captain. This sinister idea, often seen undermining democracy and working against the public's interest, has been dragged into the limelight by none other than the likes of Donald Trump. His words paint a portrait of a hidden cabal lurking within the corridors of power, a force hell-bent on controlling destiny and squashing any reform that dares to challenge the status quo. Now take that image and amp it up to full volume with some fiery rhetoric. Trump has weaponized this notion, turning the deep state into a full-blown adversary. It sets the stage like a classic good versus evil saga, casting government employees as villains lurking within the system, corrupt, power-hungry, and strikingly un-American. This story strikes a chord with many of his supporters who feel shut out by the traditional political machinery as though the doors to power have slammed in their faces. The idea of a deep state has morphed into a sprawling conspiracy theory, enveloping anyone or anything perceived as a threat to national sovereignty. Immigrants, minority communities, they're swept under this broad umbrella of suspicion. What about governance? Let's talk about the impact. It's way more significant than you'd expect. This deep state doesn't just stir the pot, it unleashes chaos, draped in a shroud of distrust and suspicion. Picture this. Our foundational faith in public institutions starts to crumble, making them seem as sturdy as a house built out of playing cards, ready to collapse with the slightest breeze. And guess what? This doesn't just stop at destabilizing trust. It actively silences any dissenting voices within the government who dare to speak out against this troubling mindset. Imagine what critics are saying. This conspiracy-fueled frenzy is akin to swinging a sledgehammer at the very pillars of democracy. It's ripping out accountability and transparency, leaving behind a stark and fragmented landscape that feels as polarized as a deep, jagged scar cutting through the nation. Nationalism versus the deep state. Imagine a battle unfolding across America's political landscape. Shouting matches, ideological barbs clashing like swords. On this stage, nationalist sentiments take their places, facing down the shadowy specter of a so-called deep state. It's a vivid picture, nationalism draped in self-reliance and sovereignty, waving the flags of strict immigration controls and prioritizing American interests above all else. Nationalists are like guardians at the gates, advocating for policies that put the interests of American citizens front and center, fortified against the whims of a globalist agenda. Now let's delve into the hotbed of immigration debates, a stark divide between open and closed borders. Nationalists dig their heels in, arguing for tough border measures to stop illegal immigration in its tracks and keep American jobs safe. To them, open borders aren't just lines on a map. They are potential breaches in national identity and security. Picture these beliefs aligning snugly with Trump-era policies focused on cutting down immigration numbers and beefing up border defenses. It's a stance as solid as a fortification in ancient times. But the story doesn't end there. Nationalism also seeps into cultural lines, touching on the larger theme of preserving traditional American values. The defenders aim to uphold what they see as the true spirit of America, standing firm against what they perceive as the overreaches of multiculturalism and new wave progressivism. Think of it as a cultural battlefield, with nationalists casting themselves as protectors of a sacred way of life, pushing back against any force that might threaten it. Shifting focus, we now explore the significant impact this ideological fight has on American identity itself. It's like rewriting the storied book of what being American means. The surge of nationalism has coiled into a redefinition, emphasizing ethnic homogeneity and traditional values over inclusivity and diversity. This shift becomes a double-edged sword, alienating marginalized groups while rallying those who feel their identities face erosion by the tides of globalization and immigration. Concerns over sovereignty add another layer of tension. Nationalists claim the deep state's hidden hand chips away at American sovereignty by backing policies that they believe prioritize the rest of the world's interests before America's. Their argument hinges on the worry that unchecked bureaucratic power opens the floodgates to foreign meddling in domestic doings, endangering the sanctity of U.S. governance. Bretton Woods. The story of the Bretton Woods Agreement begins in 1944 amid the ashes and chaos left by World War II. Imagine the world's major economies gathering in a New Hampshire resort town, not for leisure, but for a high-stakes mission that would reshape the entire landscape of global economics. The conference sought to lay down a bedrock of stability, solidifying international economic cooperation when the world needed it most. They crafted a daring plan with one compelling aim: to bring harmony and growth to global currencies by anchoring them to a fixed exchange system where everything revolved around the US dollar. Pure gold, in economic terms, at an unyielding rate of $35 per ounce. This unprecedented move wasn't just about stabilizing trade, it was about crafting a whole new era of economic predictability and creating an inviting playground for international investments. Now let's talk about the magic ingredient that kept this system running: the fixed exchange rates. Under this ambitious set of rules, stability became king. Countries across the globe struck an agreement to lash their currencies to the US dollar. The payoff was massive: reduced volatility and smoother sailing in international trade. Imagine a world where businesses could plan and expand without the constant dread of currency fluctuations. From this grand meeting also sprang the International Monetary Fund, an essential pillar in the world's financial architecture. Tasked with offering financial aid and stabilizing turbulent currencies during economic crises, the International Monetary Fund became a watchful guardian of global economic health. Its mission: monitor the complex web of economic trends and jump in with support whenever countries hit those treacherous balance of payment rapids. Not to be outdone, the World Bank was also born from the same Bretton Woods lineage. Standing shoulder to shoulder with the International Monetary Fund, its mission was as clear as it was grand: to tackle poverty and spur economic growth in parts of the world often left in the economic dust. Providing financial and technical muscle for development projects, the World Bank was all about leveling the playing field across developing nations. But like all great tales, this one had a twist. Fast forward to the late 1960s and early 1970s, a time when the Bretton Woods system began to show cracks. Inflation was heating up in the U.S., trade imbalances were stirring, and the hunger for gold surged. Enter President Richard Nixon in 1971, who dropped a bombshell by suspending the dollar's convertibility into gold. Just like that, the carefully crafted Bretton Woods system found itself unraveling, giving way to a new, unpredictable era of floating exchange rates. This seismic shift from fixed to floating rates was no small matter. With it came a surge of volatility that rattled international currency markets to their core, casting shadows of uncertainty over global trade. On one hand, more elastic monetary policies unfolded, allowing countries some leeway amid economic ebbs and flows. Yet, this newfound flexibility was a double-edged sword, ushering in financial crises and stirring economic instability in regions that suddenly found themselves grappling with a very different economic world. In the aftermath of Bretton Woods, countries had to navigate these uncharted waters, learning to adapt and find balance in a world no longer bound by the gold standard. This unscripted chapter in global economics still echoes today, reminding us that stability and chaos often dance a delicate waltz on the world's financial stage. Trump's economic strategy. Let's jump into the whirlwind of Donald Trump's economic strategy, which boldly challenges the old Bretton Woods framework in favor of an America First doctrine, setting the stage to redefine global trade rules as we know them. By putting the spotlight squarely on reviving American manufacturing, Trump has been shaking things up, pushing a narrative that's all about challenging and transforming the global trade norms we've grown used to. Picture this. Trump's plans to dismantle key aspects of Bretton Woods are marked by clear, unwavering goals with dramatic expected outcomes. Tariffs, the big guns in Trump's economic arsenal, have consistently been front and center. He's touted them as protective shields for American industries, designed to fend off foreign competition and help local manufacturers stand tall. Remember those tariff hikes on steel, aluminum, and a range of consumer goods? Each and every one of them was meticulously crafted to not just make importing these goods pricier, but to encourage businesses to invest in domestic production, elevating reliance on homegrown resources. A cornerstone of Trump's economic vision is simply bringing manufacturing home. His strategies lay a foundation of policies designed to coax companies into doing so. Think of the proposed tax breaks for enterprises that manufacture goods on U.S. soil, combined with hefty tariffs on imports from giants like China and Mexico. This approach paints a clear picture of Trump's intent to return production operations to the U.S., encouraging investments and a potential resurgence in local manufacturing. Trade agreements? They're another piece of this intricate puzzle. Trump's mission has been to overhaul deals that he believes have underserved American workers, leaving them in an unfavorable spot. Out went the Trans-Pacific Partnership, while the NAFTA was reborn into the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, a move laden with intentions of renegotiating terms to better favor U.S. interests and beef up the economy from within. But what economic outcomes are lurking behind these initiatives? Job creation is one of the flagship promises. Trump argues that by making imports pricier and incentivizing local production, new jobs will inevitably sprout in the manufacturing landscape. However, not all is sunny. Critics are quick to voice concerns about potential inflation spikes due to his tariff policies, which could lead to costlier imported goods. This would hit low and middle-income households hardest, seeing as they spend a larger chunk of their earnings on essentials. The thing between economic growth and the looming threat of trade wars begs attention. Trump's followers are hopeful that these manufacturing revitalization efforts will spark economic growth. Yet economists caution against the tangled web of trade wars, warning of potential retaliatory measures from other nations. Such backlash could strain international relations and even wind up hurting U.S. exports, pulling the economy in directions few expected. A vivid vision of new American industrialism is painted in Trump's strategy. A brand that revolves around crafting special economic zones with lower taxes and fewer regulations meant to reel companies back to the U.S. shores. It's all about cutting corporate tax rates from 21% to 15% for domestic manufacturers to incentivize them to stay put rather than scout overseas for cheaper labor. Still trumpeting skepticism are economists who express doubt about the feasibility of achieving these ambitious goals without significant repercussions smacking the broader economy. They warn that while protective measures offer shelter to certain industries, they may invite inefficiencies and whittle away at the competitiveness needed for the long haul. Economic shifts. Let's talk about currency and trade. Imagine the US dollar standing tall like the king of the world, dominating the global stage. Yet beneath this facade of stability lies a story of shifting sands. Picture this. Under Trump's influence, trade policies took a hard turn towards protectionism. It was like pulling the emergency brake on a speeding train. Think of the renegotiation of NAFTA into the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. A move as surprising as a secret plot twist. Add to this the tariffs slapped on Chinese goods. It was a bold play aimed at tackling trade imbalances and safeguarding American manufacturing jobs from the global competition free-for-all. This wasn't just a policy change. It echoed a growing trend of nationalism creeping into trade discussions. Envision the U.S. manufacturing sector like a once thriving city now battling enemies at the gates. These twin forces have been like invisible thieves, snatching away jobs from traditional industries. Here comes Trump's administration riding in like a knight in shining armor. They rolled out tax incentives and a wave of deregulation, waving the banner of Make America Strong Again. The goal? To breathe life back into the American manufacturing scene and lure jobs back home. But here's the catch. The effectiveness of these grand strategies is still up for debate. Those big structural challenges, they're stubborn, holding on like a ghost that just won't leave. And then there's the specter of economic inequality, looming larger and more ominous with each policy twist. It's the elephant in the room that refuses to be ignored. Picture tax cuts that seem to favor the wealthier slices of society, leaving critics shouting from the rooftops about widening income gaps. It's a controversial scene, stirring debates about whether this economic screenplay is sustainable or just a fleeting mirage in a desert of inequity. The big question remains, in a world constantly remodeling itself, where is the U.S. economy headed next? Trump's foreign policy. Let's take a closer look at the big picture, how global governance might impact national sovereignty and U.S. autonomy. Imagine a world where international rules and frameworks seep into the fabric of national decision-making. Critics keep waving red flags, arguing that these initiatives could slowly erode a nation's sovereignty, like water wearing down rock. They see these global obligations as shackles that limit a country's freedom to act independently as it sees fit. Nationalists are especially wary, warning that the focus on collective decision-making could steamroll over domestic concerns, sparking conflicts where international mandates clash head-on with homegrown policies. U.S. autonomy. Now there's something that's got people talking. Dive into Trump's foreign policy playbook, and you'll see a clear preference for bilateral agreements over any complex multilateral web. This wasn't just a whim, it was a core strategy to safeguard America's right to call its own shots. Trump's approach mirrored a broader suspicion towards big groups seen as potential infringers on American sovereignty. NATO, trade agreements, you name it. They all came into his crosshairs as the battle for autonomy took center stage. And then there's the political climate, charged with sparks of polarization as the global governance debate rages on. Watch as the U.S. splits down partisan lines, with many Republicans echoing Trump's skepticism towards global institutions, while Democrats tend to champion cooperation on an international scale. This divide isn't just political theater. It deeply complicates any efforts to tackle global challenges that cry out for united action. Think climate change, think public health disasters. When push comes to shove, it's the collective approach that often holds the key. International relations. How are they faring amid all this? As the U.S. steps back from, or even undermines, some international agreements, there's a tangible risk it might leave allies in the lurch and sabotage its influence in the high-stakes conversations on global governance. Trump's foreign policy swaggered with a transactional flair, focusing intently on immediate national interests over the intricate dance of long-term alliances. Such a stance could tip the balance, wobbling the existing frameworks crafted to hold global stability in place. The threats against him are not just personal, they symbolize a broader struggle for power and identity in America. As we reflect on these events, it's essential to consider the implications for the future of American democracy. Will the forces of nationalism continue to reshape the political arena, or will the push for global cooperation and inclusivity prevail? Let us know your thoughts in the comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.